I have read a lot of business books, and most of them are fine. But these three felt like genuine cheat codes because once I actually implemented the lessons they taught me, my business grew by 50% in a single year. My content began to perform better than it had in literal years, and I finally stopped feeling guilty for taking time off. So let's talk about all the lessons that I've learned, and thank you to Go High Level for sponsoring this video. The first book is Simple Marketing for Smart People by Billy Bross and Tiago Forte, and I am willing to bet every single dollar that I have that the vast majority of you hate sales. You hate selling your work, you hate writing call to actions, you hate, having these conversations with customers about what the price is, how much they want for it. You hate that. It feels emotionally off. It feels coercive, manipulative, uncomfortable. And that's because what we are taught about sales is genuinely terrible. I was on a call last year for a program that I was really excited to join that's run by a creator that I really admired. And the way that sales call was handled put me off of that creator. I have stopped watching their content. It's uncomfortable for me now. And it's because of the way that conversation was handled. I only joined the call because the price of the program actually wasn't available on the sales page. I had to hop on a call with someone to join, and the salesperson, who was someone not the creator that they had hired, was really pushy and kind of manipulative in this conversation. It was a 30-minute call. It was, chatty. They went through the whole script, and they told me straight up, Kelsey, if you want to join this program, you have to decide right now. You have to take out your wallet. Here's my wallet. And you have to join this second, or else doors are closed. You can't join. And that was genuinely so uncomfortable. I wanted to take a few hours to think it over, and they literally would not let me. It was credit card right this second or you're out. It was so nerve-wracking. It was so uncomfortable. It was so coercive and dysregulating that while I purchased, I felt coerced. I felt genuinely bad about that experience, and that has colored my sort of impression of the creator that ran that program and the program itself. I feel so culturally unaligned with this person now because of how that was handled. And I was thinking to myself the entire time, wow, this is so not the way that I want someone to feel when they interact with me in my own business. That was such a clarifying moment for me because I was like, I want to design my entire sales process to give someone the opposite of this experience. And that's how gross it felt. It was so uncomfortable. And the worst part is that those manipulative tactics are what gets taught as best practice. Join right now or it's gone forever. You have to decide literally right this second. It doesn't feel good because you aren't sure if the product that you're buying is actually for you. And so when I actually picked up and read this book, it was genuinely such a relief because the way that Billy Bross and Tiago Forte teach sales is genuinely so refreshing. It is so different from the norm, and it feels good. The experience of sales, the way they teach it, I've done this for 6 months now, it feels good. Instead of using all of these strategies to borderline coerce someone into making a purchase, Billy Bross and Tiago Forte teach something called belief building. Belief building is the idea of essentially creating content with a very particular message that removes every single mental roadblock that prevents a prospect or an audience member from buying. So you can avoid hard selling and turn your content into education and storytelling. It will feel good because you won't have to do hard sales. You won't have to rely on that kind of coercion because you will just give your customer, your potential customer, so much confidence in purchasing, they will know that it's right for them and they will beg you to purchase. So to do this, I want you to think about every possible objection that someone would have to purchasing your offer, every false belief they might have. So when it comes to prints and originals, for example, maybe someone feels like framing and hanging up your artwork would be difficult and expensive, right? Like, I have definitely purchased prints literally in the studio. I have some like actually right there, where I just haven't hung them up. I've been in this office for 2 years. I have yet to hang things on the walls because it feels difficult and aversive to me. And that is an objection that I have to purchasing more artwork. Or maybe you're a mentor. Maybe, your ideal customer is someone that wants to improve their skills, and someone believes that just blindly copying references would get them to where they want to go, that they don't need the attention and experience of someone that's an expert, that they don't need you in your mentorship. Your content has to dismantle these beliefs. You have to convince someone that hanging up and framing artwork is actually easy. You have to convince someone that they can't grow that fast by just blindly copying references, that they have to get the support and the feedback of someone more experienced if they want to grow faster. It will feel like the natural next step for someone to purchase that print or join your program. And something really important to remember here is that sales, like the choice to purchase, is driven by more than just logic. It's also driven by emotion. We're humans, right? We're not perfectly rational beings. We have this like lizard hindbrain inside of us that drives a lot of our behavior. If something feels off to us, that will color our experience. That sales call that I was on that I told you about, that felt off to me. It like made me be on a high alert, right? I was anxious the entire time. That did not leave me with a good impression of that creator, that sales rep, that program. I joined, but I felt bad about it, even though that program did exactly what it said that it would. It had all of the features, all of the knowledge inside. It was valuable, but I didn't feel good about it. And that has influenced my willingness to purchase again from that creator. That's really important. Like, I did not buy a scam. I just had a bad sales experience. And you have to think about this when you design your kind of sales process in your own business. If something feels off, if you rely too much on like false scarcity, then you build a bad impression of you and your business and your customer. And that is not good. Like, you want to optimize your business aggressively as possible to get repeat customers, to surprise and delight someone so much that they tell their friends and they buy everything that you have to offer. That's the ideal. And over time, your entire content library should take someone from being a total stranger to being ready to purchase, right? And depending on where someone is in the sales process, like, maybe they are a stranger, or maybe they kind of know a little bit about you and your world. They've been following you for a little while. Your content should build all of these beliefs and just move someone seamlessly through this process. The chain of beliefs that you have to build for a cold prospect will be much longer than a warm prospect. And Tiago Forte and Billy Bross talk about that in this book, but that's the approach. If you want to avoid hard selling, your content has to replicate you in that sales process. It has to build confidence. And over the past 6 months, I have been implementing this belief building framework. And as a result, I'm able to use scarcity and like FOMO and limited time offers just when I have to, like just when it feels very natural and not forced, of course. And I have been able to sell out my offers over and over again. It feels really good. If you want something that doesn't feel uncomfortable, if you want a sales process that like feels good to actually do, if you want to be better at sales in general, this book is so good. Please read it. And if you pair it with the lessons from this next book, you will become genuinely unstoppable. The next book that I think is a genuine cheat code in business is Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. The thesis of Oversubscribed is very simple. In order to make serious profit in your business, you have to have more demand than you have supply. If you want to make serious money, you have to have customers like lining up down the street begging to do business with you. And there are only 3 ways your business can go. Either you have more supply than you have demand, in which case your business is so far from being profitable, you are likely ending every single year with less money than you started. you are taking a loss, especially if you consider the value of your time and what you could be doing instead. The next option is that supply and demand are perfectly matched. This means you are likely able to cover your operating expenses for your business, so you can pay yourself, you can pay for materials, for costs, for any employees that you have, but you don't really have anything left over. You also can't raise prices because if you do, demand goes down. So you're stuck where you're at, and you can never really take a good profit in your business. You cannot actually use your business to build wealth for you and your family. The final option here is that you are oversubscribed, meaning that you have way more demand than you have supply. You have a ridiculous amount of people that would love to work with you that you just can't accommodate. You can raise your prices and still be booked out 3 months in advance and have a wait list or sell out a shop update basically instantly. This is the only situation in which you can take a profit. Most businesses, especially small businesses, never reach this point. They stay stuck, either losing money year after year or in that world where supply and demand are just about equal. And that is a prison. If you want to break free of that prison, you have to become oversubscribed. And so often, when we think about demand in a market, we think of it as like this massive force that we cannot control, right? That we are just beholden to. And that's not true. You can actually change the demand for your business kind of at will. And the way that you do this is by differentiating yourself. If you feel like you cannot charge more in your industry, congrats. Create a new industry, create a new market, differentiate yourself so much that you are the only person that does what you do, that you become irreplaceable. And for a group of people, you will become the only person that can give them what they want. And you'll have way more demand than you can have supply. That is how you become oversubscribed. And if you want to differentiate yourself, there are kind of only a couple ways that you can do this. And before I get into that, before I teach you how to differentiate yourself in your market, I want to briefly thank Go High Level for sponsoring this video. Something that took me a while to understand is that customers are not just paying for the final product. They are paying for the experience of working with you. How quickly you respond to emails, how good the end result is, how seamlessly you take in feedback and make changes, and how fast the invoice arrives and the shipping confirmation, the tracking number, all of those things, right? For a lot of creatives, the back end of their business, the experience is really messy. Everyone from muralists to photographers to designers or artists taking commissions, the work is incredible, but the experience is kind of held together by duct tape and string and hopes and prayers. And that is where Go High Level comes in. Go High Level is the platform to professionalize your entire operations in your business. So when someone reaches out, they get a response automatically. They don't have to wait for you. Your follow-up sequences just go. It is automated. When a project ends, a customer gets an automatic invoice. No waiting from you. Clients can book calls directly onto your calendar without a back and forth. And everything, every conversation, every customer, every outstanding invoice, it all lives in one place. One place that is searchable and easy to use and not a Google Doc that you started in 2022 and don't know how to use anymore. There is a better way to run your business, and it is with Go High Level. If you want to wow your customers and make the experience of interacting with your business feel truly seamless, I will leave a link in the description for a free 14-day trial to Go High Level. And thank you again for sponsoring this video. So let's get back to oversubscribed. Like I mentioned, we want to kind of separate our business from the broader constraints of supply and demand in our existing market. We want to differentiate ourselves enough that we can create our own market in our business. And there are a couple ways that you can do this. Number one, you could build really strong relationships and emotional connections with your ideal customer to just like be their friend, to really understand them. Number two, you could compete on price. Like maybe everyone in your industry is very expensive and you can undercut that by doing something different. And that would be a way to differentiate yourself in the market. I don't like this one as much because it's often very short lived. And I think that the problem that most creatives have is that we undercharge. So, what I do not want you to do is to get into a race to the bottom in your industry. And number three is to be incredibly convenient, right? Think about Amazon, for example. They do this, right? They have like day of, 3 hour, 2 day shipping options that enable you to get your order basically instantly. Instacart, DoorDash, Postmates, Uber Eats, they all do this, right? They're all just like faster and more convenient than existing options. But I think by far the best way to differentiate yourself in your market is through innovation. And let me explain what I mean by that. We see this in tech brands literally all the time, right? Like Apple's strong industrial design, their big focus on Apple silicon chips, their, tendency to go above and beyond in terms of hardware and new things to make things faster and thinner and, insert whatever adjective you want there. But I want you to think about this kind of differently because we can't all go out there and invent new paint and new panels and new ways of working. That's not how I want you to think about innovation. I want you to think about innovation like giving your customer exactly what they want, right? Knowing that desire and being able to deliver it at a level that no one else can or no one else is currently. Let me explain what I mean by this. So, one of the folks that I'm working with right now, her name's Natalia, and Natalia is a mural painter. She helps small businesses and organizations become landmarks in their town by becoming like visually striking, right? By having this amazing mural that she does. And on a recent call, I asked her, like, when someone purchases this mural for their business, what do they really want? What is like their desired end goal that is underneath this like surface desire? And what she said is that these small businesses, they want more business, they want more visibility, they want that mural to do some marketing work for them, basically. And I thought that was really interesting. And that sparked an idea for me because Natalia used to work literally in marketing. And I thought to myself, okay, if your clients are buying murals and what they really want is more visibility, what they really want is to become a landmark, they want to be notable, they want to be memorable, right? Can we just offer them more to help them achieve that desire faster? Can we have a mural package for sure, but can you also use your marketing experience to, take the design elements of that mural and bring it onto their menus, their branding, their packaging, their social media? Can you create an immersive experience for this business that has a mural as a part of that, but enables them to become like really noteworthy because of how visually striking and like branded it is? Because for Natalia, there are lots of artists that do murals. How many artists are there that combine their marketing experience and their social media experience with their abilities as a muralist? Kind of none, or at least very little. She would become iconic. And that's what it means to differentiate yourself. To become oversubscribed, you want to be an industry of one. And to briefly tie back into simple marketing for smart people, when you have done this work to differentiate yourself in your market, when, like Natalia, you have kind of figured out this possible approach, your content, the beliefs that you are building have to back up this differentiation. You have to show that you are different. You have to build the belief in your customers and your prospects that you are different. Because if they don't see how you're different, if you still look and talk like everyone else, you have not successfully actually differentiated yourself. But once you have done this, you will have more demand than you know what to do with. You will have to build infrastructure to manage this demand. You will have to have calendars and wait lists and limited release launches. And once you have more demand than you have supply, once you are oversubscribed, it will be incredibly tempting to increase supply to capture some of this extra stuff, right? But I want to flag for you that the entire premise of being oversubscribed is that some folks will have to miss out. Some people will have to wait 6 months to work with you. Ceramic artists do this all the time. My favorite ceramic artists, I have to be on a wait list. I have to set a calendar. I have to set like a reminder on my phone to purchase their latest drop, and I often miss out. And I'm happy for them. They are oversubscribed. They refuse to increase supply to capture that demand, and that enables them to stay oversubscribed and to always sell out. Because again, the entire premise of being oversubscribed is that some people will miss out. If you want to buy a house and, fund your retirement and to not have to post on Instagram when you're 85 years old, like you have to be able to be comfortable with some folks missing out. And as soon as you get actually comfortable with some folks missing out, you will become so much more able to take real breaks in your business. That is a really important lesson that I learned from the next book. And that brings me to the final book that I want to talk about, which is Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. And so much of the success and the changes in my business over the past 2 years can be directly attributed to me having read this book. It has been absolutely transformative for the way that I think about work. So right now I am in this sort of phase of my life where I am trying to manage a chronic illness and also anxiety. And the hard part is that if I take medication for one, the other gets worse. So that's really tricky, and it boils down to basically me not being nearly as productive as I would like to be. Trying to manage this is hard, and I used to feel really guilty about that. I used to feel like I was constantly behind, and after having read this book, I was able to sort of reframe a lot of the ways that I think about work. Newport argues that employers and more broadly society and our general work culture often prioritize busyness or like the appearance of productivity over actual productivity, meaning that you need to be seen answering emails and attending all of these meetings, and that's how your boss kind of gauges productivity, your general activity levels. I was actually catching up with a friend from high school recently, and she told me, Kelsey, I am like working this new job, and my boss gives me a list of items every Monday morning, and I finish literally all of them by Tuesday, but I'm expected to like drag it out until Friday. If she was honest with her employer about how much things were actually taking, they would cut her hours, right? They would like punish her for being more productive than the previous employee. They want this appearance of busyness, that's what they value, over having more work actually done in the business. That was crazy to me. That was like mind boggling. I was not surprised, but I was disappointed. I think that a lot of folks like think about productivity in this way, where it's more important to be seen as busy rather than like actually doing things that drive value and revenue and eyeballs on your own products in your business. Before the 20th century and the rise of like knowledge work and how we work now, a massive chunk of people were working in factories, and productivity then was something very easily measurable, right? Like how many items were you producing on the factory floor? Did you meet your quota? Yes or no? Now it's much harder to quantify, right? Like when I kept having all these recurring health issues, I began to realize that so many tasks in my business were just to keep busy. I was making the same mistake as my friend's boss. Very little of what I was doing actually mattered. I was dragging things out just to drag them out. And as a result, I was spending so much of my limited focus, my limited energy on bullshit, on nonsense, on things that did not actually help my business. And it took a massive reframe for me to like snap myself out of that and to realize, oh, there are only a couple things that drive my business forward. And if I want to actually grow this year, I have to only focus on those things. I have to make those tasks like my life's mission. And because I had been spending like all of this energy on these other stuff, I didn't have like the focus or the willpower left to spend on those really important tasks. And in the book, Newport talks about how important it is to be incredibly vigilant over like pseudo productivity and all of the bullshit nonsense, because the best creatives, the most influential creatives of the 20th century, they only focus on the things that actually mattered, and they devoted time real time in their calendar to doing those things. Think about Georgia O'Keeffe, for example. Georgia O'Keeffe would spend her winters in New York City working with gallery owners and like selling her work. And in the summers, she would retreat to, I think it was like New Mexico, and she would spend her entire summers there, just in nature, painting, creating, and then take all of that work back with her to New York City when fall came around. That was her life. That's what she did. And as a result, she is one of the most influential painters of the 20th century. Like, she devoted time in her calendar to the work that mattered and did not allow the random bullshit to encroach on that time. Because as creatives, what's really important to remember is that your creativity, your energy, your vision for your work, that is the product. That is what folks are purchasing. That's what they want from you. You have to be willing to relentlessly guard that time because it is truly the most important time in your business. Making the art, making the products, having the ideas that make the content actually work, all of that time has to be guarded like your life depends on it. So if I had to boil these books down into 3 lessons, it would be this. Number 1, build belief in your audience before you ever ask them to buy. Number 2, make sure more people want what you're offering than you have capacity to provide. And number 3, protect your creative energy. Like your business depends on it because it does. So go read these books. Seriously, I strongly recommend it. I will leave links to them in the description. And if you want to discover what few things actually drive your business forward and which you should focus on, watch some video on the screen next. I made a whole video on that topic. Thank you again to Go High Level, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.